What's going on? Welcome back to another episode of the Mist Podcast. And your one and only here. We'll be talking about today being a musician. Because being a musician and being an artist today is like nothing, and where it's going, nothing compared to where it's ever been, and where it's going is nothing compared to where it's ever been either. No matter where we go, as far as it is right now and where we're continuing to go with music, like the dynamic of who a musician is completely different than who it was in 2017. And it's actually become like there's a lot of pros and cons, because the way I've looked at it now, when I started trying to be an artist, avidly be an artist, and understand like what the business application of that is, what it means on every single layer of being involved in the quote music business, and what being an artist inside of the business even means, and what your role and position is, and how many roles and positions you even take, right? Because 20 years ago, you were not the one and all on getting everything done for yourself, as in you couldn't just go to YouTube and learn all the skills and be a one-man band basically and have it full. You had to have people doing your stuff, and over time, we've kind of thrown more skills back into our hands individually, but that doesn't really feel like it's because we wanted to. Like, I don't want to do all these other things other than be a musician. Like, I don't want to be a full-time graphic designer and social media marketer and everything else that has ended up coming along with being a musician. And some aspects of it I've been all right with learning, and it's developed me as a person, because there's, like talking to people and just making connections with people in general is like a very, very avid thing for me. So that works. But like for obviously some people, the way they look at creating TikTok content based around their music and, being that type of social media influencer or marketer or whatever the hell it is like almost differently ingrained for how each individual person has their come up. But the times also almost completely import or change how things have to happen. Like in 2015, 16, and 17, almost every artist was probably kind of looking around like, yeah, we have SoundCloud, but promotional wise, like unless you really make a big move or you're in like a music city, it still kind of felt like the industry hadn't really caught up with what the internet could do for you, unless you like, because TikTok just hadn't fully changed the game yet. But TikTok's change to the game has now changed the whole fucking dynamic. And I feel like as musicians, as time goes on, like we've been diluted more and more down to like, you basically need to know like how to do almost every single part of being an artist. And if you don't, you either have to find all the people that can collaborate with you to make that happen. And it's a lot. And we normalize now that you just have to be good at 30 things within your one profession to be successful in it and for people to take you seriously, which, is what it is. That's how our growing industry evolves. Like, you can't just have good music anymore. You have to have good music and good marketing. And if you don't have good marketing, but you have great music, then it doesn't really matter how good your music is. If you have subpar music, but you have great marketing, you still can get somewhere, but you might have a ceiling because the quality of your music is not necessarily there. But maybe you find your audience and your ceiling still provides you financial stability. That has never been more broad, but it also comes with the advert sacrifice that like, what layer of being a musician are you actually going to sit in now? Because we have seen that like TikTok doesn't exactly equate over to you having people in person. So like, did we ever then really lose what like the old part of the music industry could do for you? And it's like, it's just not the same. It's not what I necessarily signed up for, and it's probably not what a lot of people signed up for. But I think now it's getting more and more back into the hands of people because of like, crypto and Web3 and things that create sovereignty, and also have people that feel sovereign themselves, that they can value specific things like music and art, and they can scale that up to be like, okay, this is actually valuable, or those people are valuable. And that's giving an opportunity for people to get paid outside of those means. But if we're talking about just using the regular music industry itself, then it's like, how are you building community? And if you have something that basically does not let you build community, right? Meaning that like TikTok has equated to someone selling out a whole arena for a show, and the only words that anyone can mount back to that artist is the clip that they had from the TikTok sound. And that means that those people didn't really give a shit about the artist like that, because you did not learn the song. You just, people are caring for different reasons now, and that does have like an effect and a backlash over time on like what's happening and how things are going on. Like, I feel like now that I've had to learn so many skills as a musician, as many people do, and I'm fine with that. But it feels like on top of that I have so many more skills I have to keep learning to keep up with the movement of the industry, and it doesn't make any fucking sense. And so I'm just kind of like, essentially when I say that is like, I learned all these other skills with doing everything to do with music over the past X amount of time, and now coming into today's world is like I have to now understand so many more layers that like not necessarily were here, like that I wasn't worrying about in 2016. You know, we saw how Post Malone came out and, you know, everything that he did to do what he did, and how people came out of the 2017 SoundCloud era, but they didn't rely on half the things that we rely on today. And so the change of the music industry has gone to this like, you know, what if XXXTentacion had TikTok to use instead? How different would his approach be? He would not have executed any of his marketing plan the exact same way, and neither would have Post Malone. So I think the whole point is now if a breakout star has to come out via an entirely different set of means, and TikTok provides a broader opportunity for that. But the one thing that was not taken away in the 2017 and 2016 era was like, you know, X was doing a bunch of Avid shows and like really garnishing a local community that had nothing to do with the internet and everything to do with his in-person, like, you know, what he's doing and value he's creating with people and the experience he's giving. And the experience now is like not the same on how we're giving it out and how people are also abstracting and taking that in. And so the needs of the people have changed, which obviously means that the position of the artist changes. Is my whole take on this. I understand I have to learn, and many people have to be way more than just an artist if you want to be an artist, or you have to get a team to do it, like whatever. I understand that. But the position that I am in as a single entity artist has continued to flow and change so much that like there is only so much that I or as many people can do, which leads me into different areas of the internet that are not TikTok. Because now it's like I'm looking at Web3, and I think that this as a whole thing to be said is that we have options. Somebody wants to go the TikTok route and get, you know, 2 million average listeners on Spotify and go that's cool. But you are going to have some drawback if you've never played a show. All these people only know you from your TikTok songs. Like, there obviously still is a repercussive effect to that. So then what actual, like, and so I think that that's just, we're at the point where being a musician and the future of music is not that there's any one way that you have to do it. There's not a standard, and you can still do it and accomplish it with knowing a limited, or you might have to know even more skills. I'm still now having to grab more and more things that I don't necessarily care to understand, like visual experiences and things that give people visual based experiences. But I'm having to come into that because a part of any brand is the visualization you're providing in your content. And so it just speaks to another layer of how am I building my brand then upon the music? Because if I'm being an artist is still being a brand, and that's also selling the brand to people specifically and packaging that, which has to be done in visual based content. And there's just no way around that. Like, the music itself is not ever going to be the selling point, and unfortunately it never really has, unless you're changing your dynamic on what you're selling and who you're selling it to, and also changing then what price points, and that's where like blockchain technology comes into play, because people are and have done that. But if we're talking about outside of that, because I think a lot of people that might gravitate towards this video are going to be like on the half spectrum of both of those sides, is if it's not TikTok, well, to be honest, if you're not going to go the mass route, the only other way that you could do it is by the old early 2000s means of building a local community and being involved in other things like that, and then finding your breakout if that's the case. But I think we have to remember that you don't have to have just one thing, or you don't have to be the biggest artist to be a profitable artist. That's really where things are going with this whole industry, is that like you now can be a wonderfully profitable artist without having to go on the deep end. So it's like, okay, if we're not going to look at the blockchain, then maybe we can look at maximizing like not just short form content, but like putting stuff, like you'd have to still maximize on putting out visual content. Unfortunately, that's kind of like where we're at, is like now everyone MTV used to be the seller of all the music videos and all that, and now it's just like we all have to do it ourselves and put it in our hands. And other than building connections with people or finding a way that you can build connections with people and then let those people invest in you, there's really not a way for us to like see the industry moving outside of this mass consumptive process. Now, there's options, but it depends on what side you want to sit on this whole thing, because you can build your business however you choose as an artist. I am choosing to do it through real interpersonal connections. I'd rather have 1,000 people fully riding with everything I'm ever going to do rather than 1 million people that will not care about me next month. And that doesn't mean that those people won't care about me, because you could still continue your marketing, but that just depends on what model you want to sit with, right? And how I function, how I am as an artist, my stamp is in, I am creating art. It is not like a song by fucking Future or Lil Baby that everyone's just going to slide in to their ears and then slide out within 2 weeks. And they're still going to know who Lil Baby is, or they're still going to listen to all his other stuff that they find more appealing to him. But I'm not just throwing a bunch of wish-wash in people's ears. And that also reflects into my brand and then how I'm going to market myself. And my stuff is just not going to be as marketable to a mass point of audience unless it was packaged and repurposed specifically. And I don't know how to do that side, but I know how to be myself, which is going and making connections with people interpersonally. And that's how I'm going to build my brand until, I don't care about doing the mass part of it. So if somebody comes in and fits in my team to do that at some point, then sure, cool, right? But I think the point is now that we as artists, we have an expansive amount of avenues that we can access and we can use and we can bring to the table to finally let us find value, to express the value we have in what we create and then expand on it. And you don't have to do any of that if you don't choose to, the business side of it. But I think, anyone can make music casually now. And I think this really only speaks for the side of it. We're trying to take this seriously now. We understand what we want to do. I really enjoy music. I want to be able to just make a living off of this or make it my hefty side hustle or something like that. And I think the overall part of the industry ends up going into blockchain technology, regardless of what happens. From a technological point of it, that's inevitable, because that makes it easier for all of these other entities to be able to fluctuate and make the money and disperse the money as they already have. So it's part of what I'm trying to help build in the blockchain area of things and build around my own self, as well as the other homies that I know that are building stuff with blockchain technology. But outside of that, the regular music industry is kind of at a very big stomped way. It's hit a fat wall. And by fat wall, it's unless I'm going to go maximize on making TikTok content or short form content, any form of visual content, and then putting that content out in front of people for them to consume, and then continuing to basically do this repurposed process via an algorithm, hoping that I pop off, I'm going to be sitting here and still living on the wishful thinking of how a platform is going to boost me instead of how I can boost myself. And unfortunately, it still is in the hands of some of those people. Unironically enough, you could say, well, you're just not making good enough content. Well, TikTok has even openly put out that the people monitoring it before you put it out get to pick and choose what's going through fully and what's not. There is a gate kept part of this whole thing that people don't remember. And I'm well, maybe your content still isn't good enough. Well, it's well, how much fucking content do I have to make before I figure it out? Because obviously I've watched enough videos, some of us have understood enough of it, but we still can't hit the mark. And it's not just me, because I see other people trying and they're running into the same stump. And so it's if the top part of the industry is just moving so quickly, as in 2 years ago, for you to do a TikTok video performance of, you just mouthing the words and changing things up and whatever was fine. But now your quality and everything about your visual premise is starting to go up from 1 to 2. So instead of me having the ability to do simple music videos, I now have to start upping all my quality. What happened to everybody not caring about quality? Oh, because when there's oversaturation to the market, how does the market then begin to expand? if there's nothing but the same concurrent repurposed things? And that's technically what most people have been doing for year by year by year, because that's all TikTok is. It's just repurposed and reoccurring content. And some people do bring an original idea, but they still have to have a packaged format. The format part of that is what is structured via the application itself to give an unconscious, dignified way you're creating your content now, instead of just trying to put something together and put it out there and hope that everybody's going to enjoy it. If they do, it finds people. If it doesn't, it doesn't. So there's still a curation part of this on the back end that people don't realize is still there. And I think that's important to point out, because for many of us now, the standard for what pops off in the algorithm from an artist is not having a low quality, regular-ish like video and half-assing the lyrics. Like, now if you don't expand somewhat on going outward on your quality, like the placement of the words or like whatever. So it's odd how we're now having to do the most but still getting a little in return. And that's kind of, I'm still trying to figure out the give and take here of understanding, like, well, where do we even go next? Because what's after TikTok? What makes this even more efficient for you to market and put stuff in front of people? There's not many other ways it goes. But so if the problem is like, I'm garnishing all these people, but the real problem on top of garnishing them is the retainment, building a community, and actually being able to financially live off what I have, because that's the real part of business, is making sure that you as an entity can still, stand and you can do everything you're supposed to do, or that you're trying to accomplish as an artist. Everyone's individual vision is different, and honestly, everyone could really build out a vision on how they want to call it. Some people want to do big stadiums and they want to travel the world to do some big shit. Like, that's fine. Some people just really like underground local stuff and they want to, whatever. Understand what your goals are before you know where you're going to be at. But I think understanding at the same time where the whole industry is at and what's going to happen is a really big part on, like, some people in parts of the industry still have not fully caught up to utilizing TikTok to the most. I see people throwing shows and doing shows all the time, but they're not promoting it effectively. And they're still not maximizing on what TikTok actually can do for the music scene in like certain parts of it, from like live performance promotion anyway, but from a promoting the music directly itself, like, that's, I don't even know what else to do. You want me to basically make a fucking 4K quality music video and make that go off in the TikTok algorithm? Because realistically, like, I've sat here and I've been trying to make content myself for a while and I can't figure it out. And like, I've sat here and done my own dilution. Well, okay, my content just wasn't good, and it wasn't good. And I kept, like, back and forth. And I've seen other people in my exact same spot. That's why I'm like, this isn't just a, like, only I am having this problem of like not making good visual content. I see other people literally going in and they're also trying, they're like giving their feedback to the algorithm for the algorithm to tell them whether or not they're doing it right, or whether they have something or they don't have something. And I keep seeing so many people just fall short. Even myself, there's only maybe a couple people I can see that did it perfectly. And I'm like, I say perfectly as in like they were able to scale their momentum in like today's area of like how progressed it is that you have to be on TikTok. You can't just have simple based videos anymore of me mouthing the words to my song and not having something appealing to the rest of it. Like, they want you to go that extra mile. And I'm like, why? But what's outside of that? What's beyond this? What's the future? The future is fostering within your community. You don't exist as a business without people that give a shit about you as a business. And the only way that you're having anybody give a shit about you as a business is by making the connections with people or being able to bring it to scale. But bringing this to scale does not get people to care about you in the right way. And we're kind of dealing with a psychological part and subconscious training of how things have begun to work. So getting back to that point is almost like you're still going to have to foster a roundabout community to some degree, especially with where the future's going. Is like, depending on your goal, you want to be profitable. The most profitable people are probably going to be the ones that fester their community the most, and foster, grow their communities the most around them. And you can already see that from people that have been successful in today's world of music. They still fostered community around them in other areas. So I think that's what TikTok is like really showing us right now, is that like where we're going is just going off of human nature. And that human nature is that there has to be a community appreciation for artistic ventures. And if I want to go the TikTok route, I still can, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm also going to be, out of all my options, the most profitable. I might get more opportunities that make me more profitable. That's the only difference I see right now with Web 2 to Web 3 is like Web 2 and everything in the regular music industry is giving you this facilitation to kind of make moves into other parts of the industry. But once again, there's like this, like the break of the independent to the label side of it. If we're never going to touch labels again and it only becomes based on the independent side of it, then I still don't know that many regular independent based artists in different communities that are like avidly doing the opposite of what they're doing on the internet. As in, like, there's not many people that I'm witnessing are getting all these things happening from the internet and getting their momentum, but then also basically pulling like a J. Cole or, you know, and then going on these full-fledged tours right on top of that and like building all of the fostering of their physical community and then having it converge. And there's some people that are, but I'm saying from like a very like, and this is might be my personal viewpoint, but in my niche and expanding around in that niche from the broad alternative to the more narrow niche of like observing metal, metalcore, deathcore, and all these other subgenres in metal, the subgenres in alternative hip hop. Like I've just, in my side of it here, that is what I've noticed. Now this might be different for like pop artists or for other areas of things, because TikTok obviously, like, that's the thing. Once again, TikTok festers a specific type of community on that application, and wherever you are is where you're building your community. And like for alternative based things, it's almost not as easy at all as some other genres to be able to grow on TikTok. So why would I keep going to TikTok? Although this feels almost like somewhat of a one of a side rant than it does like anything else. The overall point that I'm making into this is that I'm trying to understand where we go next. There's not really any other way that you can get more direct with promotion. But where does the morphing come in, right? Because people are still going to try to be artists. And it's just going to be, once again, festering more and more, building those communities. And I think community will just end up becoming a foundational thing. And over time, as the blockchain develops and things become more seamless, labels will end up just becoming service-based things where basically they're either going to become only the distributor, or they're going to make themselves the simple middlemen in the middle that guide you into whatever other area, right? Like, because they have to change their business model, otherwise they're going to fall. So it's like if UMG or Capitol Records doesn't change their business model to be around data or to be fostered around software application of becoming the distributor and only being the one distributor everybody needs to go through, and then integrating blockchain, like, so you kind of see where I'm going with this. Like if they don't change their model, then like the artist being the one sole pinnacle is not going to really be the reason why they stay afloat. And that's when our whole industry will actually begin to change, is whenever, well, and it's kind of already like that right now. There's so many artists, there's so many different things, and like labels are then also changing their deals up and how they're looking for people and who they're looking for. And that's like the major part of the industry, sure, but they're going to get beat out overall because there's just going to be too many musicians, and there already are. But it's just like, as more and more of us as regular people can find our footing to get ourselves in front of people, then what's going to matter the most? Either having something that lets you build your community easier, interact back into your community, which good luck making a, you know, it's like turning SoundCloud into a social media music platform, which is probably what actually is next. I say this, that's probably what's going to come, is something that's almost just like TikTok, but only for fucking music and music discovery, and it's going to be just as seamless. It's, you know what I mean? Like, and the reason for that is because like now when you have all these other platforms, it is kind of like directing any type of content to people, but people love music so much they want to discover things, and it's hard to discover music because SoundCloud doesn't work the same way it used to at all. And when they changed their algorithm over in 2017, they basically, you know, kind of shot themselves in the foot from having the opportunity at taking things over. And there's probably a really good specific reason that did not happen, which is that SoundCloud single-handedly could have destroyed the modern music industry before TikTok ever became a thing. And if it had done that, then you would have seen more people come out of the 2017 era than came out of that era. But there's a reason why it stopped there. was because not just these artists and what they were doing individually, but because SoundCloud was literally pushing the discoverability, and they were able to push the limits of their discoverability with the platforms. But now platforms themselves have limitations. And so you kind of see where I'm going with this, is that unless something else enables us to have more expansion as artists, then we either have to foster our own communities individually to all these people in a very direct one-on-one stance, or a 1-on-10, like a one on smaller standpoint, or something else helps us make it easier to expand music to the masses. And that's going to let some company make more money in the middle, because they can, I mean, when I go to DistroKid's a middleman that's then also going to all these other platforms and doing a lot of stuff in the middle. So it's like, how is DistroKid not the label then, right? Or not a label themselves? Well, they're solving a service-based issue. And where do we think all these labels are going to end up going? Because if there's so many artists and so many people want to accomplish so many things, and that means there's a different way that their business model has to work for them to still reap the beneficial profits of them, which is not going to be the same way that they have done in the past, where they're going to give somebody a $2 million record deal and they're going to own all your shit and they're going to run it like that. Because if they still give you a portion of your publishing now, or they let you keep specific parts, and they literally put it, things that you used to have to do for you in your hands instead, but then they still charge you for doing those things on your, anyway, I don't give a fuck about how label deals work specifically. I know how they work, but that's not the point of this. The point is that labels will have to change all of their structure. When that happens is when we will have a full overhaul of the music industry. But that almost just becomes a tailoring point, is like, when do regular musicians end up making so much concurrent money themselves along the way, that making that concurrent revenue, eventually they have to come in and be like, well, maybe if we can find out how to incentivize all these artists that are making their own $100,000, $500,000, $1 million a year without us, that we can assist them and service them in the middle. And that either is going to be like, I don't need a label, I can go upload my shit through DistroKid and like whatever else. Well, like, it might have to be a little bit more than that. It might have to be a little bit deeper than that. I don't know what they're going to do. It could also be, once again, a platform. It could be, but the thing is unless they change their model, just like how almost everything right now is changing its model. And that's kind of the point of, like, I guess, stepping into the degree of like, well, as artist to artist, what do we do? What can you do? Find what works best for you and how you want to build your business. There's so many ways that you can do this. There are no limitations. It's just however you see fit. So, and that's it for this one. I will catch you guys on the next one. This industry is going to be changing and flopping maybe a couple more different ways throughout its existence. We don't exactly know yet. But it's never been easier for you to be able to make the things you want to make and to be able to make a living off of it. So, yeah. I'll catch you guys in the next one.